everyone, and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Wednesday. It is September 8th, 2021, and this is episode 193. My name is Carol. I can be found on Ravelry as Knits and Pearls, and I can be found in person here in my home in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada. Hope you are all well and that you've had a good couple of weeks since we last spoke. If you tuned in today hoping to see some finished projects, then you are in luck. If you are hoping to see lots of color, you are also in the right place. And there may be an acquisition or two or three or to see two. I think it's going to be a long one, so I would advise you to get comfortable, maybe get yourself a drink and a project and settle in for the long haul. Before I get into the yarny goodness, however, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to say thank you to everyone who gave me feedback regarding ads on YouTube. So interestingly, it seems as though some of you are seeing ads and some of you aren't. When I tune in on my channel, I am seeing ads, at least at the beginning. I don't normally watch episodes all the way through, but the people who are seeing ads, it fortunately seems as though they're only seeing them either at the beginning of the episode or at the beginning and the end. Nobody's reported having them pop up in the middle of the episode, for which I am grateful because I personally find that really distracting. So as long as that continues to be the case, then I am going to just leave things as they are. I will only consider monetizing the channel if ads were to start popping up in the middle of the episode and if that gave me some way to control their placement. So yeah, we'll just carry on and hopefully it just stays like this, that, you know, if there have to be ads, at least it's sort of a tolerable way to have to view them. Okay, let's get on with the finished projects. And unless you are blind, you will see that I am wearing one. Or perhaps I have blinded you by wearing it because it is awfully bright. I think it is bright and beautiful and cheerful. I love how this project turned out. It is Solna by Mary Beth Temple, and this is a crochet pattern. And if you've been watching for a while, you'll know that crochet is not something I do very often, but I so enjoyed it, and I didn't want to stop working on it, so it worked up pretty quickly. I did want to be wearing it to show it to you to start, but I'm going to take it off because it's kind of warm here. We had some rain overnight and this morning, and it was quite cool, but the sun has come out and it's kind of actually muggy now. It was muggy yesterday and it's back to being muggy today, but at least it's not as hot as it used to be. But hot enough that I don't want to wear this. It's just too warm. So I think what I'll do is just hold it up, give you a good look at it, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it and the yarn. So you do begin in this corner, if you can call it a corner, and you work your way down. It's a 4-row repeat, and it creates these little points on each end. And as you can see, the yarn goes from quite a light pink into this kind of lavender color, followed by deeper purple, and finally the black. And after working this final edge, you take that yarn and you go along all of the points along this side, working edging, which I think just sets off that lighter yarn especially really nicely. So the yarn is by Fiber Nymph Dye Works. It is her Bedazzled base, and it is one of her color block gradients. So this one is called Dark to Fuchsia, but as I mentioned, I started with the fuchsia and I worked down to the dark. And if you can see there, especially in the darker colors, you can see that stellina sparkling away. So yes, I thoroughly enjoyed working on this. It was interesting though, I could definitely tell I was using different muscles in my arm than I do when I knit because I could just feel them in a different way. Um, so a few times I just had to stop, stretch out a little bit, and take a bit of a break. But yes, I am hoping to, I don't know, I don't think you say cast on when you're talking crochet, but I'd like to start another crochet project soon because I really did enjoy it. It's just a completely different rhythm than knitting, and man, is it a whole lot easier to take back and redo, as I had to do several times. Well, more than several over the course of doing the project. My second finished project is also a shawl, but this time it's a knitted shawl. It is Lavender Fields by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade. This is the fourth shawl from the Shawl Society 5 collection. So it is a triangular shawl, and it is knit in the style of a traditional hap, in that the center garter stitch triangle is knit from this point up, and then you pick up along these two edges of the triangle and work the border out from there. So I have knit it in two colors of yarn from Sweet Georgia Yarns. This is the Tough Love Sock. This is Slumber Party, and then appropriately enough, this colorway is called Dried Lavender. And when I began it, I was not sure if I was going to have enough of the main color to complete it as written, with this edging and picot bind off done in the main color. But I did have enough with 5 grams to spare. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. As you can see, it's quite large, so I'm going to hold it back over my face so you can see it more or less in its entirety and get a really good look at how it is. It's got this really pretty simple lace pattern in this border here, so plenty big enough to just wrap around, drape over your shoulders, and I think you could also wear it like this. So I'm probably find this a bit too large for my liking. I tend to prefer a smaller shawl to do this with, but actually it's not so bad, and on a cool day this would be a nice way to wear it and kind of have it out of the way. So yes, very, very pleased with this one too. I'm hoping it'll catch up on the camera just how many different tones are in this dried lavender colorway. It is not a flat purple by any stretch. I think it is just lovely. So pleased to have that one done too. I can't remember when the next shawl pattern is going to be released, but I'm feeling good having finished this one in plenty of time. My third finished project is a pair of socks that I should have finished a couple of nights ago, but as I was approaching the last few rows on the toe on the second sock, I realized I'd messed up somewhere, and I'd either decreased where I shouldn't have, or I had failed to decrease where I should have. Not sure which, but I had a uneven number of stitches between the top of the sock and the sole of the sock. And so rather than try and figure it out, it was getting late, I just put it aside and I picked it up again this morning, ripped back to the beginning of the toe, and then finished them up. So I did that while watching the latest episode of 90% Knitting by Lisa of Fiber Nymph Dye Works, which was very fitting because I was using her yarn. So these are knit using the Bounce Base. This is the On Frozen Pond colorway. And then I had a mini of Wisp that I used for the heels. As you can see, this sock ended up with a little frostbite. you try and match them up exactly, but your tension is never, exactly the same between both socks. And occasionally, you end up with the toes looking a little bit different. But other than that, they look pretty much the same. My usual 64 stitches on a 2mm needle. As I mentioned, I used a complementary color for the traditional heel flap and gusset and my usual rounded toe. So these will be for the uh, third segment of her nature make along. The theme is sea, but you can have anything you can tie to water counts. So certainly a frozen pond um, definitely fits the category. And yeah, I'm happy to be done with those. It was funny because I decided I hadn't taken part in the chatter in that thread at all since I started these, and I thought, well, before I finish it, I really should at least have a picture. So I took a picture of me holding the sock with the podcast in the background, and just as I was taking the picture, Lisa started talking about the nature mal. So it was like perfect timing. Couldn't have planned that better if I'd tried. So it was kind of fitting. Thought it was kind of funny. So that is it for all the finished projects. I have one new project to share with you this week, at least as far as knitting goes. So a little backstory. I was on the Yarn Canada website looking at the Cascade 220 Superwash Wave yarn. I am planning to weave a scarf for one of my sisters for her upcoming birthday. And I thought that yarn would be just perfect for weaving because it has a series of color changes that go throughout each skein. And I was curious how the different colorways knit up. So I went on Ravelry and I chose the yarn, searched for the yarn, and then I went on projects. And it seemed like so many projects that had been knit from this yarn were the Night Shift shawl by Andrea Mowry. And the more I looked, the more I wanted to make one for myself. So in addition to ordering yarn for my sister's scarf, I also ordered a bunch of colors to make a night shift of my own. So I started with my leftover from my Weekender sweater, which coincidentally is also by Andrea Mowry. So I had this much and a little bit more of the deep sea. Whoops, got this little box of fun here. I had this much plus a little bit more left of the deep sea colorway. And now that I'm showing this to you on camera, I'm remembering how hard it was to capture the true color of this yarn. It is much more tealy green than is showing, or tealy blue green than is showing on the screen here. So I had I think 70 something grams of this left over, so that would be more than enough. And then a lot of the shawls that I was drawn to were ones that had like the pinks and purples and the teal colors in it. So I chose 5 other colors, and I'll show them to you now. I'm just going to look at my notes so I can remember what colorways they are. So this one is color 118 Petunia, and I'm using that as color A, which is used with all the other colors in the first section of the shawl. My next color, I thought I needed a bright splash. So this one is called Unicorn. You can see there's quite a few different colors in there. This is 113. For my third color, I chose color 117, which is called Grapes. For color D, I chose color 114, which is Spring. I used the Deep Sea for color E, And then my final color, Deep Sea, is color 116. I'm not sure if I said that already. So the final color is 105 Blue Green. So I have knit the first 5 pattern repeats so far. And you use color A, and then you pair it with each of the other 5 colors to begin. And so, sorry, I have knit the first 4 sections. I have 1 more to knit. So that's how it's coming along so far. So it started out kind of pinky purpley. I'm just trying to find the right place to put this. More pinky purple, and then you can see how pinky that same yarn is now. So that's the fun part, is that as you work it up, the colors shift, hence the name Night Shift. It's originally done on with a different yarn. I think it's Spin Cycle, and a lot of people commented that Spin Cycle is quite expensive, even though it's very lovely. And so this yarn made a good substitute. So I'm having fun with it. It's just a repeating pattern. You do some slipped stitches at the beginning of each section, like slip 1, knit 1, followed by rows of plain knitting, and then you switch up to slip 2, knit 2. So even though it's the same colors that are being used in each section, it looks a little bit different because of the way the stitches play. Because there's just 2 here as opposed to 1 here. So anyway, that's super fun. So currently I'm on my last color combination for this section. That's these 2 colors here. And that'll be a good contrast. And then they just start playing with each other. So I really gave it some thought before I started, because I wanted there to be some good contrast and some good bright spots of color. So after this, I'll be pairing up these 2. And then it will be these 2. Then it will be these 2. And then these 2. And finally it will be these 2. So lots of fun to come. It's what keeps you going, because I just want to see how the different color combinations work. So having fun with that. I know everyone has knit Night Shift. I do not have a colored photo on the pattern. If I think of it, I'll put a picture of it in here from the Ravelry pattern page, but I'm sure most of you have seen this, because I forget how many thousands of people have already knit it and posted their projects on Ravelry. Definitely so many very inspiring versions, which is what led me to make my own. Okay, so that is it for the knitting. I have also been weaving this week, but because it's very hard to get the loom in here to show you, I took you to the loom. So I'm just going to insert a little segment that I recorded earlier today so you can see what I'm up to on the loom. Here you can see my latest project on the loom, but before we take a closer look and talk about it in more detail, I just want to revisit the topic of palindrome skeins briefly. As I mentioned last episode, I learned about palindrome skeins from this book by Sine Mitchell called Inventive Weaving on a Little Loom. And to refresh your memory, a palindrome skein is one in which the skein is laid out in such a fashion and the dye is applied across the skein so that when the skein is folded in half, each side matches. Now that bottom photo is the same skein, it's just been readjusted so that the dyeing technique is not quite as obvious. So there are several approaches that you can take when weaving with a palindrome skein. You can just warp it up randomly and then weave and let the colors fall where they may with no real rhyme or reason or pattern. Another thing that you can do is warp your loom in such a way that the colors line up in stripes, so that when you weave you end up with a striped effect in at least some areas of your, in this case, a scarf. Or the third thing that you can do, which is what I chose to do with this project, is to wind my warp in color blocks. Now here you can see this is the warp, and it's divided into very specific color blocks, so that when you weave you will have chunks of the various colors running the length of your project. So last week or last episode I showed you I had this skein of Lorna's Laces yarn. It is Lion and Lamb, which is a silk and wool blend. It's a worsted weight yarn in the color Twilight, and it has, as you can see, several different shades of purple in it, running from almost a bluey purple to a true purple to a gray purple. And my initial thought was to weave it up with a navy yarn. And so I bought this skein of Cascade 220 Sport in the navy colorway, and that is 83.93, excuse me. And I am not sure what made me think it was a good idea to pair a sport weight weft with a worsted weight warp, but it didn't work out so well. This fine yarn ended up just wrapping around the warp thread so that you really couldn't see the warp at all. And then I tried it with 2 strands of this, with one strand of this, and it worked out better, but still the yarn was so dark it really did obscure all the various color changes in the yarn. So then I just started experimenting, and I ended up coming up with, let's see, this skein of Cascade 220 Heathers, and this is the light or pale blue heather colorway 9559, and it is a worsted weight yarn like the Lion and Lamb, so you can see the two of them together. Having said that, it's not really working out quite as well as I'd envisioned. So initially I tried weaving with just 1 strand of the Cascade 220, but I didn't like the way that looked, and so I ended up doubling it up, which I think has a really cool look to it, and it's a nice texture, it's very soft. But unfortunately, I think no matter which yarn I used, the color changes in this Lion and Lamb yarn, I just think they're too subtle to really show up in this manner. I think when all is said and done, that even though I think I'll have produced a fairly nice scarf, and you know, it'll feel nice, it'll look nice, it's just not going to show off those color changes in the yarn as much as I would like. But you know, live and learn, that's what learning a new craft's all about. I'm not sure if you can tell the different colors. See, it goes from a darker kind of royal purple here. Here's where the gray is. You can see it gets darker here. But then when it's woven up, it's just not as obvious. And I think it won't be until it comes off of the loom and is laid out in a length that I'll see its true overall appearance. But as I'm weaving it, I'm not getting a real sense that it's going to show off the color changes to their best advantage. But like I say, live and learn. It will certainly be a usable product when it's all finished. All right, so up and coming projects. Now that I've finished my On Frozen Pond socks, I am going to cast on another pair of socks that will also fit into the current Nature Mal category. This is something I just got a few weeks ago. It's Mountain Tweed BFL, and this is the River Rocks colorway. And then I have this mini of just the natural Mountain Tweed that I am going to pair with it for heels. So I have got a couple of road trips coming up, so I should be able to finish these by the end of the month. It's only what, the 8th today, and this will make perfect car knitting coming up. So those should get cast on possibly later today or tomorrow. So looking forward to that. As I also mentioned, I have a scarf that I want to weave for my sister's birthday, and our fall birthday celebration is coming up a little sooner than I had expected, and so I've really got to get cracking now. So I did end up ordering 2 skeins of the Cascade Superwash Wave for that scarf, and this is the berries colorway. It is 104. So this is what it looks like. So you can see between the 2 different skeins, this one has more of this reddish color and more of the blue. It's to match a navy jacket, so I thought that would be good. But you know, do you ever find yourself buying the same yarn over and over? And it's not really the same yarn, but it's similar colorways of different yarn. So last week I had showed you that I was considering 2 skeins of this Malabrigo sock, and it's the same colorway. The skeins just look different. So when I pulled these out of the box and realized, yeah, obviously it was on the same wavelength. But I'm going to use this yarn just for one thing. It'll weave up a lot faster because it's a worsted weight, and this is a fingering. I guess that's probably the only reason. Plus I bought this specially for it. So that's what's happening. And then I also have a sewing project that I've in some ways been putting off, but also haven't really been able to work on this summer so much because my craft room here has been very hot for most of the summer and not comfortable to work in. So a while ago, my brother-in-law asked if I would sew him a vest. He had had a kilt made a number of years ago, and he had some leftover fabric, and he had passed that along to me, and I had never done anything with it, and he asked if there was enough for me to sew him a vest. So the sewing of the vest should be pretty straightforward. However, I need to sort of set aside a block of time to work out the pattern and fitting it, because I'm going to have to make some alterations to the pattern that I have and to sort of size it. And so it's on my to-do list for this week. In fact, I am planning tomorrow to get started on it and just concentrate on getting the pattern redrafted so that it's right, and hopefully cut out the plaid fabric. And then I still need to pick up some lining fabric for that. So I feel like once it's all cut out, it's not going to take that long to work up. And I'm hoping by next episode to have a finished vest to show you. I'm a little nervous. I haven't done a lot of garment sewing. I used to do a ton of it. I used to work in a fabric store, and I used to sew most of my own clothes. But whenever I'm making something for someone else, I feel extra pressure to get it just right. And I know that this plaid fabric is very good quality and worth a lot, so I don't want to mess up. So I'm going to have to be very careful when I cut out and match up all the plaids, and just hope I don't make any huge mistakes and have to rip things out. So cross your fingers for that. And now we come to the acquisitions section, which I am also calling today Wool Piggery, because my cup of wool runneth over. I think I mentioned that last episode, or maybe the episode before, that I'd acquired quite a few things lately, and was feeling a little guilty's not the right word, because I'm not taking food out of anyone's mouth. And some of you very kindly pointed out that collecting yarn is an entirely different hobby from actually working with it. So that made me feel better. Anyway, I had some very good yarn days or mail days in the last couple of weeks. And part of it looks like so much because 2 weeks have gone by since I last recorded, and I'm showing them all to you at once. So first off, I think you've seen everything that I picked up from Yarn Canada. So it was all the yarn for my night shift, and then the yarn that I got for my sister's woven scarf, and then I picked up some navy yarn that I had intended to use for the scarf that I'm currently weaving, but it didn't work out. So I had that come, and then I was tempted by another Fiber Nymph Dye Works update, and so I got a few things from there. So this is the Twist Fingering, which is a Peruvian, 100% Peruvian Highland wool, and it's done, actually I'm going to just snag something over there so I can show you how this works up, sort of. So this is the twist yarn in the worsted weight, and it's dyed up so that, or it's spun up so that there are sections of this black and white yarn, and then it's also striped on top of that. So I had made this, put it somewhere, I'm just surrounded by lovely things. So I had knit it up into this hat, and so you can see how it looks where the yarn has these black and white twisted areas, and then where it's just plain. So I thought it would look really cool woven, and so I picked up this skein in, as I think I said, the deep fall colorway. So you can see those twisted sections, but this is a fingering weight. So I will probably pair it up with one of these colors and warp it with this, and then do the weft with the other. Mind you, with 437 yards, I might even have enough to do both the warp and the weft in the same yarn, which I think would look really cool. Probably work up something like a plaid. So I'm anxious to try that out, and beautiful fall colors there. And then I also couldn't resist, it's gonna crinkle here. Lisa had dyed up some of, she used to call them her Serendipity sweater sets, and now she's changed that to project sets, because of course you're not limited to just making sweaters with them. So they are sets where there are 4 colors that tend to gradate from a lighter to a darker tone, and then she throws in a complementary skein. Sometimes it's speckled, sometimes it's variegated. In this case it was speckled. So this is the dark to light iron red set, and it is in her bounce base, which is a fingering weight, 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. And so I'm going to turn it this way because the flap is obscuring this. I don't want to take them out, but you can see the beautiful autumny red shades, and then this fun skein. So I only need 3 skeins of fingering to make a sweater. So I will have plenty left to do some other things with. And I haven't decided yet if I'm just going to pick maybe these first 3 shades and then work this in, or if I'll use all 4 shades. I do picture doing a sweater out of this and having this somehow feature in a yoke, whether it be a traditional color work or just something to play with color, maybe some slipped stitches or something around a yoke. But, yeah, that looks like fun. And then she also showed some new shawl pins that she's carrying from Hiya Hiya, and I couldn't resist this little bird on a branch. You know me and birds. I'm just trying to open it up here and it's not cooperating. So this is the light colorway, so it's kind of silvery. Isn't that sweet? And it's just like almost like a safety pin. So that's an easy one to pin on a shawl. Keep it closed, keep it in place. So that was my yarn piggery from Fiber Nymph Dye Works. And then a little while ago, Melissa from Sweet Fiber, which is a fairly local to me yarn dyeing company, she was opening things up for pre-orders. And so I was sorely tempted to order some yarn from her. And actually I need to go get something else I meant to get while I talk about the next item. So I'll be right back with that. Okay, so last year I started knitting the Hinterland sweater by Jennifer Steingast, and I used this yarn from Sweet Fiber as the main color. This is the Super Sweet sock base in the Driftwood colorway. And then I paired it up with some mini skeins of the same sock base. But I wasn't quite happy with how all the colors played together, and so I ended up also using this skein of her Cashmerino 20 yarn, and this is the Hippolyta colorway. So I liked how it all looked together, but in the end the yoke ended up being a bit too big. I need to go down a needle size, so I took it all apart and put it all away, ready to start again when I was ready. So when I saw that she'd opened pre-orders, like I was never really happy with mixing bases. I liked the way this color looked, but I really wanted to keep it all in the Super Sweet sock base. So when I went on her website, I found a set of minis that I thought I could take colors from, either use all of these together or pick and choose which ones I want. And actually one of the colors is the same as the other anyway. And so here they are. They will go very well with that Hinterland theme. By now I should have shown you a picture of my original yoke. And I think you'll agree that with the sky and tree and earth theme, these colors fit in very well. So I'm not exactly sure yet how they're all going to go together. I thought I might use this for the first color and graduate to the green for the tree, and then maybe this darker green for the trunks, or maybe this browny green, and maybe end up with blue underneath, or some darker brown for earth. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but now I have 10 colors to choose from, and I can mix and match and figure out my best combination. So I'm kind of excited about starting that up again, especially now that it's fall. And then I also at the same time ordered a set of her Sweet Merino Light base, which is like Tosh Merino Light from Madeline Tosh. And this colorway was just too pretty to pass up. So it doesn't have a name. It was just, the little minis were called the West Coast minis. This is just a Trio 07. So again, gorgeous colors. She has such a beautiful color sense. So before we move on to what's been going on around here, I realized I had brought something else to show you. So months and months and months ago, I showed you that I had finished this paint by number I was working on, and I'd planned to frame it and take it up to the cabin. So I went looking for frames. Cameron and I went to Michael's a while ago. We found a frame that was just perfect for it. It's very rustic looking. The only problem is that the opening was slightly bigger than the painting area. And so I'd asked one of the people who worked there if it was possible to maybe get a small mat cut. I was trying to look for solutions that didn't cost a lot because it's just for the cabin and it's just a paint by number. And then she suggested that if I still had the paint, I could just paint out that little bit. It's only about 1/4 of an inch around that I needed to fill in. She said just paint out from there, and then cut your thing to the right size and put it in. So what I actually ended up doing is cutting it to the right size before I just painted out the border. And you really only see, because of the framing area, you really only see maybe 1/8 of an inch of all of that anyway. So I finally did that this past weekend. So I'm going to show you how it looks all framed. I have to tell you a story. This was in the kitchen leaning up against the china cabinet. So I went and grabbed it, and as I'm walking down the hall towards my craft room, you can see this wood's all rustic and stuff. Well, I just saw what I thought was a rough spot on the frame, and then I realized that it was a spider of the same color. And if you live here in BC, you know those giant house spiders. A lot of people call them wolf spiders, but their real name is giant house spiders. And that's what was on top of it as I'm carrying it. And I'm not even sure how it ended up on the floor. And I tried to get it, and it's run into my linen closet, which is just outside my bedroom. So yeah, I have to go to bed tonight knowing that it's somewhere on the top floor of my house. Hope I didn't freak anyone else out. Anyway, this is how it ended up, all framed. So I'm very pleased with it. You can see it's reflecting, of course, from the light from the window, but not bad for a paint. Well, here, if I do that, I don't know. Not bad for a paint by number anyway, and it'll fit right in at the cabin. So I went ahead with my other paint by number that I'm working on. It's the same size, and we bought the same frame. So I went ahead and I trimmed that right now. And so as I'm painting, I'm working into the edges so that I won't run into that same problem. It turned out being a lot easier just working out, just filling in the sort of the edges that I expected. I had put it off for that long because I thought it was going to be a much tougher job. It's a good thing I didn't put it off too much longer because some of the paints had dried up and I had to kind of mix some water in to get some color out of them. So I'm glad I finally got around to doing that. We're going to be heading up there in a couple of weeks, so I'll take that with me, with no spider on it, hopefully. Yuck. Just real quick, I have to do a Zoom call in half an hour, so I'm going to try and wrap up really quickly with just what's been going on around here over the past couple of weeks, besides all the crafting, etc. So I think I had mentioned to you that I was going to be heading up to the cabin with my oldest granddaughter. It was her turn for a sleepover. And then, as it turned out, I think it was the night before we left, I found out that my younger sister and her husband and her oldest daughter and her family were also going to be up there. And I had planned to go in the first place in large part because one of my second cousins and her family were going to be there. And so, yeah, it turned out to be a family-filled weekend. It was great. I finally got to meet my great niece who was born a year and a half ago. And then, of course, her older brother has grown up quite a bit since I saw him last, too. He's 4. And then I was able to also meet my second cousin's newest little guy, who I think is 8 months. So got to do some baby holding, baby snuggling, and then their little guy is 2, um, like his older brother, and then Morgan and their teenage daughter. We're a little shy with each other first, but you know, flash forward or fast forward, 24 hours after we'd arrived there, and they were getting along. So we had a really great weekend. Enjoyed my alone time with my granddaughter in the car. Let her play her music most of the time. So I had a few songs that were stuck in my head after the weekend because I heard them several times on the way up and down. But it's good to get exposed to some different music that I don't listen to. And yeah, we just had a really good weekend. So that was a success. So since I last spoke with you, Cameron has been home and gone and home and gone again. He left this morning. This time he's gone for a good couple of weeks. Um, Things continue to sort of be 2 steps forward and 1 step back. They had hired someone, and she wasn't working out, but then in the meantime they have hired another person who does seem to be working out really well. Still leaves them one person short. Plus the manager wanted to take some time off because she has bought a place up there and she needs to take care of things where she at her old house and get ready to move because her closing date is mid-October. So Cameron will be covering for her and also helping to train the new person and hopefully hiring another person. So keep thinking maybe the end's in sight. We're not quite there yet. I can hear something on the roof. It's weird. I don't know if it's a bird or what. It's not really windy, so it's not something blowing around. Anyway, I don't know if you can hear that. So let's see what else. Yes, it was just Labor Day weekend this past weekend here in Canada and I think the US. So Monday was a holiday. So Cameron came home Saturday night. So he did have Sunday and Monday off. And unlike his previous days off from earlier that week, he didn't end up having to do any work. One day he thought that he would have completely off. He ended up working the whole day and then the next part of the next day. So he didn't have much of a break then, but he did get 2 full days off this time. And we had most of our family over for dinner on Sunday evening before the kids head back to school. We were just missing our younger son because he was up at the cabin. Sorry, I'm really distracted by this noise and trying to figure out what it is. So he wasn't there and we missed him because we had roast beef for dinner and he always does Yorkshire pudding because he does them the best of everybody. Unfortunately, they had to settle for mine and they just didn't, they tasted fine and they were soft. They just weren't puffy like I wanted. They were more spongy, but they all went. They couldn't have been too bad. I think I worried about them more than anyone else did. But hopefully next time we have them, he'll be here to make the Yorkshires. And then he did end up coming over the next night. He'd come back from the cabin. Cameron and I had gone golfing in the afternoon and we were just going to barbecue some hamburgers for dinner and thought he might like to join us. So he did. He came over and we had a nice supper and visit with him too. So I got to see the whole family this weekend before, launching into school. So back to school was yesterday. This year, all 3 grandkids are in a different school, elementary, middle school, and high school. It is my grandson's first year in middle school, so I guess he's a little bit nervous, but also a little bit excited. And I found out yesterday that one of his best friends is in his class. So that will make things a whole lot easier. Apparently, our younger granddaughter was up, dressed, backpack on, bed made by 10 after 7 yesterday morning, ready to go to grade 1, and was kind of disappointed that she had to wait about an hour. So she also has several friends in her class. So that's always makes it so much easier, doesn't it? That was, I know growing up, it was always better when one of your good friends, at least one of them, was in your class with you. Um, and then my oldest granddaughter she's going into grade 11, and she's quite looking forward to going back to school. So sounds like the first day of school went well, and I'm glad to hear that. Hopefully we'll have a good school year. It's nice that they are in the classroom. There are, mask rules and all of that. And hopefully this Delta variant doesn't go racing through the schools. I know they're really pushing to have the 12s and up vaccinated, and hopefully there'll be a vaccine for the younger kids before the year's out. So we shall see. And then I guess the only other thing that's kind of worth noting is yesterday, well, so Cameron was heading back this morning, and so I spent all day yesterday cooking some meals and portioning them out for both of us for that stretch while he's gone. It makes it easier for both of us to just warm some things up for dinner, and saves him having to go to restaurants all the time. But then I didn't have to cook my own dinner last night because I got together with my ladies' night group of friends, or at least some of us were able to make it. 2 people were missing, unfortunately. And also, unfortunately, one of the original members, someone I used to work with, is moving away. So it was a way for us to get together again before she moves. So kind of sad to see her leaving, but also excited for her and this new stage of her life. Both of their daughters have moved out of town and live close to each other, and so then they're moving and going to be living in the lower level of one of their daughters' homes. They're both retired now, looking forward to doing some traveling. So I'm very happy for her. Just sad that she won't be here in part of our get-togethers anymore, if we even have them. We're kind of, the numbers have been dwindling over the years, and we only got together once last year because of COVID. So I'm not even sure if this is sort of the beginning of the end of it. In a way, it'd be a shame to see it kind of go, because we've been getting together most months since, I think it was 2003. And it started out, this group, with some people that I worked with, and then we all invited people to join it. So my younger sister is part of this group. So sometimes that's the only time in a month that I would actually see her and talk to her in person. So we'll see. I'm not sure exactly what this next year holds. I guess none of us do. Anyway, I had better go. I've got 21 minutes before our Zoom call starts. We are doing some work up at the cabin in a few weeks, and we're trying to do some planning. That's the easiest way to get everybody together, is via Zoom. So have a wonderful week. I'm hoping to record again next Wednesday. We'll see how things go. If not, it probably won't be for even maybe a couple of weeks after that, because I am going away a couple of different times. So hopefully I'll see you next week. If not, as soon as I can. So take care until then. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon. Bye.